All the best.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joe, for moderating the session. In the interest of time, we'll begin our next session immediately. Plenary 15A, we have a panelist with us. New approaches in licensing and merchandising franchises to sustainability. I'm privileged to welcome Mr. Jenny Aga, founder and CEO, Planet Superheroes, Mr. Muslim Kapasi, Director, MyBaby Excellence, Ms. Nanette Dufay, Brand Expansion Advisory, Independent Director, Z-Learn, NT Educate, Camet Rest, Strategic Advisor, Garodia Edu, Mr. Sachin Sonsa Baker, Vice President, Consumer Products, Viacom 18 Media. Welcome you all to the session. May I welcome Mr. Nitin Kalra, moderator for the session. He is Regional Director, India SARC and MENA Animation, International India. Over to you, Mr. Kalra.
Thank you very much. Morning to everybody. It's good to see faces for a change here. Otherwise, we only keep talking to each other on calls, right? So,
request you to kindly keep your videos on while speaking. That will help.
Yes, I guess all of us are actually on our videos. So very good morning. There'll be a quite this will be a quite an interesting discussion. I must say I'm quite excited about the fact that we have some very senior people from the industry who are here talking to us. Because we don't know much about the audience which is out there, I'll be just quickly giving introductions to the panel, and then after we will start the discussion going forward. And just requesting Nirja, if there are any questions that are coming towards us, just keep passing them on to me so that we can take up some questions towards the end. Okay, so I'm going to start with brief introductions to everybody. Firstly, starting with Nanette. It's a little weird introducing Nanette to anyone in the licensing business because probably everyone knows her. She's like the most senior most person in the licensing business for us, and one of my personal mentors because of whom I'm actually here in the licensing business. But Nanette actually has almost 2.5 years of experience in the licensing business, having worked with companies like Disney, Mattel, Star TV, and thereafter with companies like Brainworks and Sanjeev Kapoor Restaurants as CEO. She's currently a mentor to a number of companies in the education, hospitality, as well as wellness sectors, and currently operates as an independent director on Z-Learn, NT Educare, and Kamap's Restaurant. Sachin, on the other hand, is the head of the consumer products business for Viacom 18. He obviously manages a portfolio of brands such as Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol, Peanuts, MTV, Motu Patlu, and a whole bunch of brands that are making waves around the country at this point of time. He joined Viacom in 2015, but has over 2 decades of experience in retail and sales, which includes his stints with Spiker as well as Walt Disney Company in India. Next, we move on to Muslim Kapasi, who's the CEO of MyBaby XL. MyBaby XL is one of India's leading and one of the first licensing companies that enter into the bandwagon of back to school as well as plush toys. And he comes with years of experience having worked with brands like Disney, Mattel, and a whole bunch of other IPs. I think practically every IP owner in the country has worked with MyBaby XL. And we're very excited to have Muslim on the panel to hear about his thoughts about what's happening around in the business. Finally, it's good to see Jenny, who's the founder and CEO of Planet Superheroes, which is India's only omni-channel consumer brand dedicated to character merchandise. Planet Superheroes currently operates around 25 stores in 12 states and has an exhaustive online as well as an offline distribution business. So those were the introductions of the panel, and I was told that I need to do a short introduction of myself as well. My name is Nitin Kalra. I head the business of Animation International in India. We are a 4-decade-old Japanese licensing and merchandising company, having operated in India now for about 15 years or so. one of our key brands that we represent is Doraemon, which I'm actually quite excited today that it's Doraemon's 50th anniversary today. That's the 3rd of September. And in normal circumstances, it would have been a fantastic day of celebrations around the world. But since it's abnormal times that we are living in, we're all confined to our homes. But it's a fantastic day, and I'm so happy and so glad to be talking to a distinguished panel today on the opportunities in the licensing business. So I'm going to start off this discussion with a question to our senior most panel, which is Nanit. And you've seen the ups and downs in the industry. You've seen a whole lot of things happening around when you started off working in the licensing space with at the time when the Gulf War happened, at the time when the globalization took place in India, where the economy got opened up. You've also seen, the U.S. crisis, the Lehman Brothers crisis, and you were part of American companies at that point of time. Out of your experience, how do you see COVID being different from what you've experienced in the past? And do you believe this is a threat or an opportunity? What are your thoughts on this entire COVID crisis?
So I think licensing is all about storytelling. So whether it is a crisis or a challenge or any problem, storytelling is something that people turn to. And so if we stay true to storytelling, it is about how to get those stories out there. So I really see COVID as an opportunity to relook and reinvent the way we do business. In licensing, we talk about categories, hard lines, soft lines. But for consumers and my work with children, what I find is that the consumer is all about experiences. And stories, and the most powerful stories that are there, help to fulfill an emotional need, a social need, an imaginative need, creative need. And this is not going to go out of fashion no matter what. So, just to give you the opportunities in context of COVID, when I first started in licensing and we approached a partner and we drew up a business plan and, we reached like 1 million pieces of something that were going to be sold. And I was asked that, so, okay, how much are you going to pay me? But so he didn't even understand the concept of licensing, didn't even understand that this whole discussion was about him paying us and not us paying him. He didn't understand the power of performance and storytelling. Cut to today, and of course, we didn't have any, there were only mom and pop stores, and all children only grew up with their parents, they didn't grow up with characters. And there was, I think, one shopper stop at that time, and that was a celebration for the whole country. Cut to today, you have so many worlds out there. You have digital, virtual, online. I mean, there is no problem of delivery of an experience, creating experiences, getting it out there, and reinventing the way we do things. So moving from merchandising products to storytelling and experiences, I think is a great opportunity.
Perfect. Sachin, as a brand owner, do you agree with what Nanit is saying? Will storytelling always be a USP that we in the licensing business will be able to cash on?
Yeah, many thanks, Nitin, for the generous introduction. Thanks to CII for this opportunity, and I hope whoever is here on the panel and the ones who are watching this are safe and healthy. I completely, agree with Nanit. And thanks to all our efforts, Nanit, today we don't have to educate partners on MGs and royalties. Yeah, I think you did all the hard work of informing the partners here in India. But storytelling is such an integral part of all the franchisees that come out globally, whether it's through television platforms, whether it's through digital, whether it's through experiences like meet and greet, whether it's through movies. I think storytelling is an integral part of building a franchise from a licensing standpoint. And as long as you're committed to doing that, and as long as brands are committed to ensuring that they put their muscle and might behind this, I think the success of a franchise definitely would remain in the minds of the consumers, would remain relevant, and would continue to build affinity. Yeah, I think that's what I would probably want to put across.
Perfect. So, but at the same time, when we talk about the practicality of doing business right now, and given the circumstances that we are in, and it's partially lockdown, partially not lockdown. We call it unlock, we call it lockdown. I mean, whatever we want to call it as a term. The reality is that at this stage, businesses are shying away from committing monies on other brands. As a brand owner, do you also experience the same conversations when you speak to other brands that they don't want to look at building someone else's brand at this point of time?
Yeah, I mean, let's step back a little bit on pre-COVID and understand why brands obviously engaged with franchising in the very first place. Either it was to target a specific audience, either it was to get entry into a specific retail format, either it was to probably differentiate their products with respect to the competitors that are there in the market. Now, these dynamics are not going to change post-COVID, during COVID, or the times to come. And obviously, once good times roll, there will be an amplified reason to further differentiate your product, because all the categories, all the brands which probably may have been slightly on the slow would dial up their efforts on the marketing front, on penetration at retail. So the need for brand licensing, according to me, could get amplified. Also, during the COVID period, it's not that we haven't got newer partners on board. We've been truly humbled and stunned by the entrepreneurs of India who came to us and spoke about how they want to look at differentiating in the trying times that they are currently facing. And there have been multiple categories that have shown in this COVID times. There have been personal care categories. There have been work from home categories like loungewear, apparels that have been doing extremely well. Toys have been super in terms of DIY, role play, which have done extremely well. So apart from digital, which has got momentum. So I feel you'd have to obviously start looking at finding the very reason that you got into licensing. You'll have to start differentiating your products down the line once things open up, once unlock finally is really unlocked. All the retail formats, which is predominantly the offline retail formats, also start shining, is when brand owners would really see the true merit of collaborating. And we've got multiple examples. You've got really large and huge brands like a Zara, Uniqlo, who you would say that don't really require licensing or associating with a specific brand, but they still end up doing this. Again, it is to target that specific audience. It is to target that specific need. I think this will again get amplified once India truly gets unlocked.
Sure. That's an interesting point, that how large retailers and brands are still continuing their licensing efforts. Obviously, it's a long-term game. Licensing is not a short-term spike in the business and then it's all over. Once you jump into the well, you're already there. I'm going to move this question to somebody who actually is known to put his money behind our brands, right? So we'll go to Muslim first and ask him his views in terms of how, as a licensee, sees this business changed in the last few months, and what is his optimism for?
Wow. Thanks for inviting Nitin. And yeah, it is unprecedented times, and it is yeah. I think yeah. I do agree with Nanette and Sachin that stories will remain, and stories will be told, and stories will drive content and content will create products. But I think yes, Sachin, DIY, role play, toys have definitely taken a good jump in the recent months, particularly across online stores. In fact, massive jump. But yes, the overall decline or the the shutdown or lockdown at retail and distribution has created a huge gap, and the e-commerce hasn't been able to plug that. Obviously, I mean, we don't expect them to plug that in a couple of months, but they are keen to kind of become the market dominant players, and I think they will. So there, Nitin, that's an answer to what things are changing. I think what we have seen at Excel, and it's been a crazy time. It is chaotic to say the least. Monies are really, really hard to get from distribution and retail currently. Licensors are giving us great support, so thank you guys, for understanding the pain factors. But yes, the gross reality is that we are seeing so much change in the last 4 months that it's not funny. I think there is like what we experienced, things changing in the last 10 years, all packed together in a 4-month period. It's that concentrated and that rapid. It's like we currently at office say every day is a different day now. Probably every hour we see a new challenge and a new solution that is kind of surfacing, or that kind of feels necessary to look at, which earlier it gave us a lot of time. Now it's not giving us time. It is like if we don't react and if we don't change pretty rapidly, consumers around us are changing very rapidly, or have changed already, and they are further changing. We anticipated that when malls opened, that people are locked at home. They have been, they feel like enough is enough. We've had, a lot of, confined time in a confined space. We are, we are social beings. We need social interaction. We need to kind of be out, be travel. The body needs movement, but we didn't see that. We are not seeing like people flocking to the malls all of a sudden. Of course, there's a massive amount of fear, but when that was not there, here there is a COVID-19 probably being the concentration point, but we used to fall ill. We used to, we used to take life-threatening illnesses otherwise too. And yeah, I'm not challenging the whole lockdown currently, but yeah, I think I think that we drove too much with too little thought, and the reaction to that is yet to be felt. And we are feeling them, and that is, I think, we are still at the kind of tip of the iceberg. Anyway, so coming back to coming back to how the space is going to change, I think it has already changed. I mean, I'd be lying if I'd say that nothing has changed. Everything unlocks, whatever unlock will all be back to selling the same stuff at the same location. No, it's not going to happen. I think a lot has changed, and a lot is changing, and that change is I think we're still anticipating a lot of change. We don't know that how much and what will change, but we are taking each day at a, every day. It's a new day every day. So we are taking that approach, and we are seeing how things progress from this point onwards.
Are you from your licensing business? Obviously, you mentioned that a lot of brand owners are supporting you right now, and that's something that obviously is happening across the industry, across the board. But as a licensee and as a prominent player in the back to school category as well as the toys category, are you continuing your associations with the brands you already had, or are you reviewing your catalogs and your associations at this point of time?
We are reviewing everything, Nitin. We are reviewing everything. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that we are reviewing at the moment everything, and we are just open to everything as well. So yeah, I think a lot of us. I mean, at Excel, we will see a change in our product approach, our consumer approach, our I think our nature and size of operation. So we are looking at the moment everything. I think this is a time where we are going to probably we call it the reset button.
Right.
So yeah, I think we have all the I mean we have the size, we have the brands with us. But yet, I think it's going to be a reset button that is getting pressed, and everything will need to be kind of from grounds up rebuilt, and it will look different. After that is rebuilt, it is going to look different. It's not going to be the same as yeah. I think a lot of people says everything will come back to normal. People will forget. I don't agree with that.
So coming to Jenil, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is it going to be a reset button at Planet Superheroes also? Are your stores going to look different from what they used to look, or do you still stand committed to the character merchandise business and the model that you had in the past?
Sure. I hope I'm audible, Nitin. So firstly, yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me and sharing space with this wonderful panel. Thanks a lot, CII. So I'm going to answer the first question very quickly in terms of how we look at it. I look at this as a funnel, right, which has a feeder, a central part, and a bottom. What do I mean by that? The feeder is what is the foundation of a licensing business, which is the content, which is, as somebody correctly said, the storytelling, the content that's being generated, etc. Now, how COVID has impacted that part is that when production houses have delayed their releases, right, when everything has kind of taken a 2-year, 3-year sort of a delay, that is going to have a natural, delay effect into the new movies that are going to be released, which at least for our business, and I think some of the panelists may agree, has been a fundamental driver for the popularity and mind share of licensing business over the last decade, especially with Marvel coming up with so many movies, etc. Right? So I look at the first impact coming at the supply side of content itself. I'm sure the Netflixes and the Amazon Primes of the world and the Hotstars of the world are going to take some share of it in terms of OTT content. But the biggest pull to the movies, to the theaters, to the mind share is still going to be missing. So that's number one impact. The second impact, and I think that is something that Mr. Kapasi also alluded to, has been a lot of disruption in our operations itself. While it's all very good on Excel sheets and philosophically to say things are all right, there could just the foundation of that your warehouse staff may not show up, right, has a direct impact on the revenue of that week, day, or month. Right. So we cannot de-link ourselves from the central part of the funnel, which is the supply chain and operations. Right. That's the second part where there has had a COVID impact. And the last part is the actual demand side. We all agree that there is latent demand, etc. But there is a lot of pressure on not being able to go out at the normal points of distribution, where it could be the malls, it could be the mom and pop stores, etc. So when you look at all these three in conjunction, right, the top, middle, and bottom, you see that there is a compounding effect on how it has translated into merchandise sales. So, while I agree, completely with everybody in the fact that licensing is a business to stay, and it's not something that can just go out of, can get killed overnight because of COVID. The short-term impacts, even of almost 1 to 2 years, are here to stay. And that is the number one point I just wanted to make out since you started that session. How is Planet Superheroes responding to it? We have, so we are at the very heart of our DNA are always looking, we hate the status quo. I think Sachin will smile and remember that, considers me a little bit of a rebel in general, but also that's how we look at our business, that if we are not changing things, we are probably moving one step back. What we've been doing, and it came at an opportune time, was we had actually mapped our entire store inventory to our website. It's a lot of people talk about omni-channel, but it's actually operationally quite difficult. We actually launched our omni-channel operations in the middle of COVID. Actually in the month of May. So the first thing on how we responded, we ensured that the inventory sitting in our physical locations are not in silos. They are available, for the depth and breadth is available to the larger audience, so that even if they were to transact on our website, you would be able to see it, right? And I think a lot of companies, the big box retailers, are also moving in that direction. So that was more of the technology front. There are other things when you mentioned about our stores. Of course, other than the health front, we've made some we've made some changes which where we are not able to get the pull, in the sense we're not able to get the customer. We are trying to do the push. We have started doing social commerce through WhatsApp groups and WhatsApp messaging, creating catalogs which are shareable, has become a very important strategy of our outreach. So I think I think I'll wait for the other questions. There are some of the I would say initiatives we have taken to be able to still somehow navigate through these difficult times.
Sure. That's very interesting from a point of view of showcasing that if in a way, if the consumer cannot come to your store, you take the store to the consumer.
Absolutely.
It's already happening that we are seeing in a lot of places, including in my complex where I live here in Gurgaon. We've had already lifestyle. We've already had Bata. We've had a couple of other retailers who've already reached out to us and have come to our complex and set up their own stores on the weekend. And a lot of people have gone and bought whatever they required. So I don't know operationally how viable that model is, because going to each and every complex and getting stationed there for 2 days with the people, with the stock, and moving everything across. Operationally, it might be difficult, but maybe that's another way of actually reaching out to consumers. I want to take one point back to Sachin from what Jenil mentioned, that content is changing. Okay. And this is where I first want Sachin to give his thoughts, and then I'd also like to hear it from Nan in terms of how how her experience has been in terms of understanding the children's psychology, the kids' psychology in terms of the content has also changed over a period of time. So Sachin, could you first come to the discussion and tell me whether you believe content has changed over a period of time, because of which the impact on the merchandising business is going to stay here at least for the next couple of years?
Look, from a character and animation business perspective, I think we have seen a lot of change in terms of the flow of content. Of course, the viewing habits have changed. People obviously are now viewing content more on their handsets than on the television sets. While India has also seen a lot of momentum rise in views on television, I think both mediums are showing great traction with respect to new content which is coming. Even on the Nickelodeon channels that we have, whether it's newer episodes for a Paw Patrol, we are launching them in the next 1 week. So there is a seamless flow of new content which is coming, which is again critical to staying relevant in the minds of the consumers and the kids, and building and driving that affinity. We are also looking at ways and means to probably do digital releases of some unseen content for a few franchises. Again, it would not be a full-fledged theatrical release, but it could be a few episodes stitched and made into a movie and then put it out digitally. Again, it's a means of keeping that content piece alive in the minds of the consumer. So I don't see a lot of changes happening from a character and animation perspective, But obviously, the GEC segment and the fictional segments have seen this dip in terms of newer content flow, and that is something that we have seen on our Colors channel, for example. But as far as this piece on kids is concerned, we haven't seen a huge change.
I'm going to take this question to Jenny before we get into Nanette for this further. Jenny, you mentioned about the fact that movie releases have got delayed, right? So Marvel's, The Verge, and all the other studios have delayed their blockbuster movies which are coming in. Obviously, this is going to have an impact on your direct sales because you deal with the character merchandise. How do you see these films releasing on OTT platforms and having a similar kind of an impact on your sale as it used to be in theaters? Is it safe to say that theaters will get replaced by the online movie releases? So, for example, if Disney is releasing a Mulan now on OTT, would that still drive enough sales for you through the online channels, or would that still generate demand for a Mulan merchandise at your store, for example?
Absolutely. I mean, as long as they are able to time their release on any of these platforms, I think the demand, the mind share will continue. I mean, we saw that with with whether it was Game of Thrones on on Hotstar, or whether we see the IPL fever, or we see even with I think the latest movie that was released, right, with Shishant, right? So Dil Bechara Hai, right? So my point is, I think if you can get a way to reach the consumers, I think that is not a problem. What I feel is the problem is the actual production of the movie. I mean, if you cannot be in studios to actually produce a movie, if actors cannot come together and make a movie, you're not going to see the impact today or in 3 months. You're going to see that impact in 18 months and 24 months, right? So the content which is even flowing in today perhaps was created or was in the pipeline that happened, maybe 12 months before, right? So the point is, I feel that to be an issue. If somehow the movie or the content fraternity is able to piece this together, I think that would be a big relief because OTT is a great platform to to get mind share. So to answer your question, I don't think it's about theaters necessarily. As long as they can release new content and regularly, I think we are good.
So that's good to know that it is not about the platform in which the movies are coming out. It's actually the whole idea is to reach to the end consumer, whether it's through the OTT, whether it's on their mobile phone, whether it's on their television, whether it's on their laptops or theaters or whatever. Or as
exactly
we're going to see a trend in drive-in theaters that are going to start opening up pretty soon. So that's an interesting observation to look at. And then, of course, yes, I'm sure content producers are finding ways and means of actually getting back to work as early as possible. Like Sachin mentioned, that on the channels like Colors and Star and Z, etc., they've already revived their production schedules and they've gone ahead with fresh content. That again would be very interesting. I want to go back to Nanette now on this and just take a slightly different perspective to this discussion now. And we have seen over a period of time that the kids' psychology has really changed even pre-COVID. And I remember having a discussion with you once in my office where we were talking about the fact that how kids today mature very early in their life cycle. Do you think COVID has really fastened that conclusion that today's kids are maturing too soon? And will that have an impact on the merchandising business as we saw it in the past? Because, earlier when a child was an 8-year-old, you could still go and sell him a t-shirt of a particular character, let's say a Motu Patlu or a Chota Bheem or a Doraemon. But now when you look at an 8-year-old, his level of maturity is completely different, right? Because they're all doing online schooling, they're all having access to the internet, they're watching all kinds of crazy things on YouTube on their own. I mean, as we speak, my son is actually doing his online school and I don't know what he's doing inside, right, to be honest. But do you think the level of maturity has really set in too soon for the kids of today? And how do you see that impacting our business?
So kids' development can be broken into, the basic stage is the foundational stage. And it would be anywhere between 2 to 8 years old. during that time, the brain and the cognitive processes are still being developed, right? So this kid is really an emotional being. He operates the right side of his brain, it's imagination, it's creative play. It is not contextual. For him, I think COVID is the fact that he cannot see his friends. COVID is, so, I mean, we are with the consulting with, and they do the learning management system, and the big bonus of using something like Zoom is that I can see all my friends. And you will see that in the chat, the teacher has to literally put off the chat because they are talking to each other. So there is that need for a connection. After 8, of course, the kids' development is kind of cognitive development and processing of information will change, and obviously the way he sees the world will be impacted by what's happening around him. So you'd have to treat them differently. They don't understand. To my mind, I don't think the child really understands what is happening, because for 0 to 8, they cannot process something which is abstract. The brain has not yet comprehended or seen the world around them. So it's only thereafter, and if you see the way they learn things, they learn to identify things. So this is a fish, and this is a horse, and this is a cow, and this is Japan, and this is, that's the way they go. So this is COVID. So what is COVID, right? It's too abstract. So 0 to 6, 8, I don't think we'd see, a problem. But beyond that, I think there would be a lot of fallout of what this is going to do to kids emotionally, because they are stuck at home. They're supposed to play. They're supposed to meet. The social learning, emotional. These are the foundation of who we are today. So, I hope we don't produce a COVID generation. And I think the characters and the stories, etc., can help bring the child to the world that we ought to give him. And this should be the adult conversation of COVID. It shouldn't be for the kids. I think we can spare them that.
So clearly, from a point of view of the children, like you mentioned, 0 to 8 or 0 to 6, 7 may be still an easy age for them to understand it. But beyond that, when we talk about the kids as our audience, and when we see this at retail as well, of course, from a perspective of consumers, Jenny would focus more on teenagers and young adults. But still, do you foresee, for example, children getting access to too much of information or too much of content that they are not supposed to get access to very early in life? Is that something that's going to happen? Once we start seeing the after effects of COVID, that's going to take place.
So typically with kids, there may be a few exceptions, but the general rule is the kid can see the same thing again and again. So, once he's hung on to a character, it's very difficult to get him off it. So that becomes his hero, that becomes his world, that becomes what he lives. So, so then you don't keep changing your world. It's not comfortable, right? So they tend to stay in a character world. Maybe all of them have their favorite characters. It's a different world. Maybe 2 or 3. The Justice League, where all the superheroes come together, is a very adult phenomena. I think it for them it exists in silo. Spider-Man is Spider-Man. Superman is Superman. It stays within a particular world. It's easier for them to understand as a context. Now, what I'm saying this from is not from the licensing side, but from my experience of how kids learn. That their learning process is built like that. So it doesn't matter what you put through that, it's the same pipe, right? So they will process it in much the same way because they are learning like that way. If they learn math, they will learn addition, and then they'll learn subtraction. They won't learn it in combination. It is linear, right? So to my mind, I think they will stick with, if you make an impact, the kid will come to you. I mean, he doesn't have favorites.
So that's interesting. Muslim, would you agree to the fact that what Nan said, that children will still continue to love their favorite characters, and children would still want what they originally wanted? Yes, maybe the way of how you deliver to them might change, but do you believe that the opportunity with licensing still continues to be very strong, given the circumstance that we are in?
Yeah, I think it gets stronger, Nitin, because and I agree with Planet, and I think you missed the read between the lines there, that there is a blurring between frontline content and the non-frontline content taking place right now. I mean, a kid will choose or pick his superhero now far more individually then decided amongst his friends and peers. I mean, they will digitally kind of probably exchange their ideas, but it is nowhere near like physical exchange. The physical presence and sharing and showing my superhero figurine and your superhero figurine. I think that kind of bonding or that interaction is at a risk right now, and in a way that's also a blessing in disguise, because there will be a lot of small content generators who can, under the circumstances, start to exist or coexist. Earlier, they were probably at a larger threat of being overwhelmed or pushed down by the larger fraternity of characters that exist and takes the larger part of the universe. I think the larger characters will continue to exist, but the newer characters will find their way in as well. I think I see I see that happening for sure, and that is already visible. There are, I think we are seeing that some of that in our sales already. I mean, we represent pretty much every kind of character and product category, and we are seeing that blurring. We are seeing that blurring quite significantly.
I think that statement that you just made, that a lot of small content creators will also come in, that definitely puts both Sachin and me in a very good spot, because we can start pushing
both you and Sachin don't even have small content or non-relevant.
No, we do. Yeah, we do, but the problem with licensees...
That's being modest, Sachin.
No, but the problem with licensees has always been that when you go to them, the first question you're asked is which kaun se channel pe aata hai? And that becomes a very big question mark in case of a lot of content, which would be really good, which would probably have a lot of followers as well, and its own segment of community that people are looking at. But when you talk about mass production, that is the problem that really happens. So it's good to hear that
I'd like to add here. So I think going forward, there's another front end that is going to develop is the direct-to-consumer channel. I think a direct-to-consumer channel is going to become a far bigger than a B2B kind of way of doing business. Now, once a direct-to-consumer channel kind of takes precedence and becomes the bigger role, actually your ability to sell everything becomes that much easier. I think, kind of very largely, you're not contesting for shelf space. And retailers will analyze their throughput, their ROIs on their shelf space, which in a direct-to-consumer business actually kind of overcomes that. And now suddenly the smaller characters have every opportunity. I'm calling that smaller characters or whatever. Don't take it as smaller. In our world, I don't think there is anything small or big. It's the consumer that makes it what it makes or what it decides. But yeah, the opportunity to present the product to the consumer is becoming so much more easier going forward. And that is going to change a lot of landscape from the content side of business. Because now even the smaller or the less commercial content will stand a fair chance to make its make its money.
Right. Janil, I want to ask you a particular question and taking the discussion further with what Muslim just mentioned. Do you see in the future production processes actually changing? Because right now what happens is you end up taking a license of a particular character, a particular brand, then you emphasize that, okay, I'm anticipated to sell maybe X amount of t-shirts, X amount of bags, X amount of stuff. So you go to a factory will give you an MOQ and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then you are forced to stock it, not knowing whether it will sell or not sell. So the whole inventory risk is still remains. And but given what Muslim just said, that there will be a huge spurt or possibly spurt in non-popular characters. Do you see concepts like print on demand or produce on demand actually growing? Have you had some experience in that field? Because I also believe in your stores you do sell certain IPs which are not extremely mass popular ones as well. What has your experience been on this one?
Absolutely. I think, Muslim, and you are absolutely spot on. I can tell you as a licensee as well as integrated retailer and also somebody that has a distribution channel for the toys business, that we are all reinventing the model. And I would like to take this opportunity to quote a thing that Peter Drucker once said, that if you want to start something new, you need to stop doing something old, right? And I think this fits into something that you are mentioning out here, and because we imbibe that philosophy very seriously. So let me answer the specific question on inventory management. Is just in time an important factor in our in our supply chain? Absolutely. In fact, I can on this panel share that we have actually successfully implemented a pilot for apparel cotton just in time. There was always a sublimation just in time which was possible. We have actually perfected the model by doing just in time screen printing, which mind you is a little difficult. You need to have there are certain technical issues where you need to have your own production house, etc., to be able to do it. And we launched a not very popular, but one may argue popular line called Chacha Chaudhary just last week with Rohit and Brand Monk. So that is one of those examples where we are going to use the just-in-time production to test out the demand without having too much of inventory risk, especially for apparel where it all starts building up, right? In second to something that was also mentioned was the innovation in terms of direct to consumer, how we are going to reach out. In fact, we have also launched a social commerce platform. It's called Zimshow. It means zero investment model shop, which is going to enable brand owners like My Baby XL, like Hasbro, like Mattel to actually reach directly to consumer through retailers. It's a very innovative concept where no retailer will need to stock inventory, no retailer will need to invest on shelf space, but they could still enable sales of a brand and make their commission. This has been architected almost over 1.5 years. It was very complicated tech stack which was built out, and we've launched it. As we speak, we are doing that. We are doing that with 15 retailers in Mumbai. Why am I mentioning this is the model has changed not only at the supply side but also at the distribution side. The traditional model of giving people inventory and then following up over 6 months, 8 months with liquidity crunches, which are obviously an after effect of COVID. Brand owners need to move and think this is not a model which is going to work. So I hope that answers partly on your question, that it's not just the merchandise and production but also how you're going to make it reach the end consumer is what is being disrupted.
Interesting. This question would be directed to Sachin on what Janil mentioned about this whole just-in-time thing and something called zero investment model that he spoke about. How does this actually change the licensing business per se? Because clearly our model is very different, right? I mean, we are the guys who believe in minimum guarantees, and we are the ones who require business plans in advance, and we need to know what the licensee will sell, where will he sell. But here comes a time when somebody is saying, I'm giving you a zero investment business model and I'm giving you a just-in-time model. Come in, try your brand. If it works, take the money. If it doesn't, just go. How do you see this, brand owners like yourself adapting to this new change?
Yeah, look, I think it is incumbent on all the partners in the supply chain to obviously reinvent the wheel and look at new ways of doing business or monetizing your IPs. If there is a sincere opportunity to look at a large-scale business model or a model which looks at a just-in-time delivery mechanism, I think there is no harm in exploring the possibilities. Yeah, such a model has not existed in the country so far, and if this is something new, we could obviously look at modeling and trying it out for the initial 3 to 6 months, and then working on a commercial arrangement if the franchise is new. But if it is, I think if it is a known franchise, it stood the test of time. I don't know how many licensors would be comfortable with a model that talks about a zero investment or a zero NG model to kickstart, because that's the model how licensing works. And normally the monies that are collected through the licensing business are plowed back into the content streams, and that's an important facet of the entire process. That it's just not that the licensor does not put his risks on the table and is only expecting the licensee to perform his obligations at all points of time. We obviously look at engaging deeply with our partners, with our licensees, in facilitating sell-throughs, in making use of our networks to push product categories. We keep engaging with them. We are sensitive to what most of our partners are going through at this point of time, and are looking at ways and means to facilitate sales. And obviously, in the coming months, you would see what Viacom 18 would end up doing, especially from an online standpoint. But hey, this is a perspective. A zero NG may be possible for some unknown franchises, but if it's a known franchise, I don't know how many licensors would be amenable to look at a zero NG model, if that's the question you were asking.
I know we are running out of time. Rakhi, Neerja, do we have any questions that we need to specifically take, or should I move on to the closing comments?
Sir, there is a question which I have posted in the chat box. If you want, I can read that out.
Please read that out, please.
Okay. How do toys and merchandise operations and digital marketing discover local individual comic content creator and promote them for independent growth, pipeline, process, and analytics?
Sorry, I could not hear the question.
I will repeat, sir. How do toys and merchandise operations and digital marketing discover local individual comic content creator and promote them for interdependent growth?
Okay, so it's a question that I believe, if I understood correctly, talks about how local players could actually benefit out of the merchandising space, and how do they get discovered on digital platforms. It's got a context to what Muslim mentioned about how individual content players would want to get into the business and how they could get an opportunity. And I believe Jalil already answered that to the fact that just-in-time as a model is here to stay, and if the content is strong enough and people see value in actually buying it, and I can add from my side that if the content is strong enough from a creative standpoint as well, where it looks good on a product, where it attracts a consumer's mind and eyes, and he or she feels that it is worth their money, they will definitely go ahead and buy that content. And the only thing is, we may not see this content still going on the mass platforms and finding its way onto a retail shelf, but on digital, and in the just-in-time model, I think there's definitely an opportunity for someone to discover newer content and and monetize that as well.
Nitin, I mean, if I may just add,
Please go ahead.
yeah, if I may just add, if I may just add to this, I think, one of the strategies, and I must, first of all, caveat that, the just-in-time model is not applicable to all categories. I mean, a simple example, if you are doing, the core toy line, right, there is no question about just-in-time, right? I mean, there is, in fact, it is all predicated, the model is predicated on buying or importing or producing at bulk. But to address this specific question, if it's, assuming it's an aspiring content creator, I think there is a strategy to go to look at what avenues that you can channelize digitally to first make the content popular. So instead of first jumping straight into merchandise, into apparel, caps, saying that that's going to sell, try to figure out if you can do collaborations with digital games. Can you become an emoticon on one of your, you said like a game provider? Are people engaging with? Did you make WhatsApp stickers? Did you make it funny? Do you have a story on Instagram? Do you have content? Let's make that content popular where you have got some MVP, the minimum viable product, where you have validation that people are actually connecting with your character story. And whether it's indigenous, whether it's local, whether it's international, does not matter. Once you have some kind of faith that this is something that people are engaging with, that's when you come up and engage with a licensing licensor, an agency, or somebody like us who would then roll out a bunch of products. That's sort of one idea on how do you get into the market without spending a whole lot of money.
So the story again comes back to content. To story.
Can I add here?
It's all about
I think
storytelling.
can I add here? I think small content owners or makers, or I mean, if that question was what I understood, I don't think they need anybody anymore. I mean, pretty much they are where everybody is. I mean, so yeah, I think evaluate. Probably in an earlier day you needed distribution. We are again looking at that. Do we even need distribution? We can manage. We can go to those 100 crores or a billion consumers directly ourselves. That's the way forward, isn't it?
Right. Is there any other question that we have?
No, we don't have it.
Okay, perfect. So just closing comments. We'll go one by one. Sachin, do you want to just take the lead in making a closing statement in terms of how do we see the licensing business going forward?
Yeah. I think I'm a big fan of the concept of compelling storytelling and being in the entertainment and character business. I think this paradigm is not going to shift a lot. The storytelling will continue, and hence the licensing business obviously would stand the test of time and the testing times that it's in at the moment. I think consistency is the key for a lot of brand licensors, and most of them have realized this over the last 5 months, and hence the amplified effort to churn out newer content, the efforts to explore various marketing initiatives is coming very, very aggressively from a lot of partners. I think we will see in the next few months how licensors are trying to tackle this by engaging with the partners, working with them to ensure that the consumer keeps getting their merchandise in meaningful ways. Yeah.
Anil, any closing comments from your end?
Sure. I think as a closing comment, we have, I think it's become the standard mantra of even the startup world. It says pivot or perish, right? And I don't think any of us is immune to it, whether you're a licensor, licensee, or anybody in the middle. I think the way forward we do, of course, we are all impacted by it, but we look at it as an opportunity to push ourselves to innovate. I think whether it was what Muslim was talking about, finding ways to go to consumer. Many times bigger brands always had your channel partners, and they never ever evaluated that because it was too easy. Sell it to somebody, they will do it, have a margin, game over. But now we are all in not just COVID, but also I must add, the policies that are happening, especially with imports with China, the BIS, etc. There is an entire tectonic shift. So my closing comment is each and every one of us is, figuring out at least 2 or 3 innovative initiatives to change the landscape of the business. As Planet Superheroes, we are making investments which are completely technology enabled, which are not only going to help us, but also going to help licensors like us to be able to go directly to consumer. That's my.
Perfect. Muslim, can we have your closing comments?
Yeah, I think I'll probably have the briefest comment. We are trying to get a hold on the pulse of the consumer at the moment, and I think I think that is shifting, or that is changing, and it will continue to change because things are rapidly around him changing. He's also adapting to new ways of consumption, new ways of finding his own content or his preference of characters. And I agree with Sachin a little bit, not a little bit, a lot bit on the MG and the business plans is going to remain. I don't think so. That's going away anywhere, and nor that we are expecting it to. Because I I understand if I were a content creator, and if my partner was not putting his money where his mouth is, I'd be wary. I would think that will he do enough? Yes, of course there will be a reality check on both the MGs and the business plans, but that's fine, and that has never been not there anyway. So we've seen that transition anyway over a period of many years. Now we are seeing it a little too rapidly. But it's great times. I think we are all excited. At Excel, we are brilliantly excited. We are tackling a lot of chaos, and we love chaos. So yeah, I think it's fun times ahead.
Interesting. Finally, Nan, any words of advice and wisdom for us?
So I think COVID has, focused on wellness. The whole thing is about happiness. It's about even wellness is sitting in happiness. Happiness is about richer experiences, stronger connections, many ways to be happy. It is not a lot of things. It's much richer experiences. So I think the challenge and the opportunity for licensors is not to just understand the tactical or the strategic aspects of the business, the distribution and how many people watch and whatever, but to understand this consumer so that you can give him this richer experience. I think that's what is our individual responsibility to every child out there, that you make sure it's your face bring a smile on his face.
So I think with that we'll put an end to the discussion. It was really interesting to hear different comments and points of views. And thank you very much to CII once again on behalf of the entire panel, Neerja and Rakhi and Karan and of course Mr. Biren Ghosh for putting all of us together on this platform. It was a real pleasure having and speaking to all of you here. I hope we can meet in person soon, hopefully, and continue learning and expanding the horizons of knowledge that we all have. Thank you very much. Have a good day and stay safe.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.